The Star Wars prequels have been dissected for 25 years. Every awkward line catalogued, every plot hole mapped. But there is something else in these films that almost no one discusses. Not bad filmmaking. Something cursed. Moments that feel inexplicably wrong, and that accumulate quietly, film by film, into a pattern suggesting the trilogy's villain didn't merely corrupt its hero. He engineered him from conception. It begins with a joke no one thought to take seriously. Jar Binks stands in the center of the Galactic Senate, his ears drooping, his hands fidgeting, as if he's still expecting a pratfall. The chamber is a cold blue void, ringed by floating platforms and the indifferent gaze of thousands of senators. On the holo-screen above him, the words, "Vote for Jar Jar," flicker in sterile white, a campaign slogan that was never meant to be taken seriously. This is not a moment of triumph. It is a moment that feels like a dare. The storyboards for Attack of the Clones lay out the scene with clinical precision. Jar Jar alone at the speaker's pod, dwarfed by the scale of the Republic. His voice, usually pitched for slapstick, now echoes through the Senate with an unsettling formality. He proposes granting emergency powers to the Chancellor. The entire chamber erupts in approval, as if the fate of the galaxy has been decided by accident. There is no music to soften the absurdity. The camera lingers on his face, just long enough for the discomfort to register. In a 2001 interview, George Lucas described this sequence as a deliberate joke about democracy's vulnerability. I wanted to show how a ridiculous figure could be elevated by the Senate's desire for a new face, which feels wrong on a gut level. The line was never meant to be subtle. The Republic, once a symbol of order, is now a stage for a cartoon character. The laughter catches in the throat. There is something quietly disturbing about the ease with which the Senate accepts Jar Jar's proposal. The moment is played straight. There are no winks to the audience, no musical cues to suggest irony. The comic relief has become the architect of a new regime. The camera cuts to the Chancellor, his face unreadable, while Jar Jar stands frozen in the spotlight, unaware of the consequences he has set in motion. The discomfort lingers long after the scene ends. The audience is left to wonder if the joke was ever funny or if it was always a warning. The holo-screen's "Vote for Jar Jar" slogan, preserved in the storyboards but barely visible in the final cut, is a reminder that legitimacy can be manufactured from almost anything. The galaxy's fate is decided not by wisdom or courage, but by a character whose only qualification is that he was available. There is no catharsis here, only a sense of something having gone quietly, irreversibly wrong. The Senate cheers, the Chancellor smiles, and Jar Jar, still comic, still out of place, has changed history. The joke lands, but the laughter never comes. A boy sits alone in a cluttered Tatooine workshop, surrounded by the leftovers of other people's machines. He bends over a battered table, hands steady, eyes narrowed, twisting wires with a practiced calm. There is no music, only the sharp clatter of tools. This is Anakin Skywalker. Not at play, but at work, building something only he understands. On the table, a skeletal droid lies in pieces. Its gold plating is half attached, eyes blank and unlit. The camera lingers on Anakin's hands as he connects the torso to the head, gold catching the Tatooine sun. The droid will become C-3PO, though the name is never spoken here. The assembly is quiet, almost ceremonial. The boy's face is intent, his fingers precise, the droid's face expressionless. Each cut is abrupt, mechanical, as if the act of creation is being documented rather than celebrated. There is no sense of wonder, only the slow, deliberate animation of something inert under a child's will. Storyboards break the sequence into phases. Soldering a circuit board, bolting the torso to the chassis, then the final reveal. C-3PO upright, seamless. No visible seams to betray its origins. Shadows stretch across the workbench, the lighting low and indirect. The droid's eyes stay dark until the last moment, when Anakin flips a switch and the lights flicker on. There is no applause, no fanfare. The droid stands, mute and waiting, as if expecting orders. The workshop is crowded with spare parts, a silent inventory of failed attempts. Discarded limbs and heads pile in the background, easy to overlook but impossible to forget. Anakin's focus is total. When Watto enters, Anakin offers the droid as a trade for a pod racer engine. Watto laughs, calling it too valuable to give up. The droid's worth is practical, not sentimental. Anakin is ready to trade his creation for a chance at something faster, something that might let him leave. Industrial Light and Magic built a real mock-up of the droid, so the actor could handle it, making the creation feel tangible, not magical. George Lucas described wanting to show a Force-sensitive child's natural creativity, something that will later be twisted into darker purposes. There is no prophecy here, just a boy compelled to build what is missing. Official records confirm the details. C-3PO was built by young Anakin from scavenged parts, the original chassis, a prototype found in the desert. In the novelization, Anakin grins as he places the final golden plate, but the film leaves out the smile. The scene is not played for warmth. Scholars see this moment, a child assembling a machine, as a quiet echo of what's to come. The act of building a sentient companion from scrap foreshadows the saga's fascination with engineered life. For now, it is only a boy, a droid, and a workbench. The camera holds on the finished product, then cuts away. The unease lingers. Creation is complete, and something about it feels quietly, irreversibly wrong. A single line, spoken without emphasis, sits at the center of the prequel trilogy's most unsettling claim. Shmi Skywalker says, "There was no father. I carried him. I gave birth. I raised him. I can't explain what happened." Her words, delivered in the dim light of her Tatooine home, are met with silence. Qui-Gon Jinn listens but does not press. The moment is stripped of comfort. No dramatic music plays, just the faint hum of the room. The silence feels clinical, as if the film itself recoils from the weight of her confession. George Lucas, in the DVD commentary, calls this his mythic echo, a deliberate nod to immaculate conception. The phrase "conceived by the Force" enters the story not through prophecy or spectacle, but through a mother's quiet admission. For a brief moment, the narrative flirts with the language of miracles, then retreats, leaving the meaning unresolved. The audience is handed a miracle without explanation, a chosen one whose existence is both extraordinary and unaccounted for. The next musical cue, titled "Lunch and the Younglings," is gentle, led by harp. It floats over a Jedi training hall where children practice with miniature sabers. The scene moves slowly. The camera lingers on the younglings' faces, on small hands gripping two large blades, on robes that hang awkwardly. Yoda's voice is soft, almost a whisper, as he guides them through riddles. The atmosphere is calm but not comforting. It feels artificial, like the hush of a hospital corridor or an empty classroom after hours. The music stays in the background, careful not to disturb the quiet. It is as if the film is afraid to break the spell. There is a fragility to these children. They are presented as the future of the Jedi, but their vulnerability is unmistakable. Each movement is careful, their focus easily broken. The camera holds each shot a little too long, exposing rather than reassuring. They are being observed, catalogued, prepared for something they cannot understand. The contrast is intentional. Anakin's miraculous birth, a child with no father, unfolds against a backdrop of institutional innocence. The Jedi, guardians of peace, now resemble caretakers in a nursery. The sense of something manufactured rather than born begins to seep in. The children are not learning, they are being processed. The prophecy that brought Anakin into being is never questioned, simply accepted, as if destiny itself can be constructed. Production notes confirm that Lunch and the Younglings was written to be unobtrusive, a soft layer beneath the dialogue. The harp, chosen for its lullaby quality, does not soothe. It distances. The audience is kept at a remove, forced to watch but not engage. Anakin is not just a child, he is the product of a story that refuses to explain itself. The Jedi younglings, lined up in neat rows, echo that same manufactured innocence. The film offers a miracle, then quietly hints it may be nothing more than an experiment. The discomfort lingers, unresolved. Rows of identical white helmets turn in perfect unison, each face beneath them blank and interchangeable. The Camino cloning facility, all sterile corridors and humming lights, presents its product without ceremony. Thousands of soldiers, engineered for obedience, awaiting deployment. The camera glides along the line, every movement synchronized, every gesture rehearsed. There is no individuality here, only the suggestion of it. The effect is not triumphant. It is chilling. The original cut of this sequence ran longer. Early storyboards show a slow pan across the ranks, each clone's gaze locked straight ahead, the shot held just long enough for the sameness to sink in. But in the final edit, the moment is trimmed, the camera barely pausing before cutting away. George Lucas later explained the decision: too much time on the clones would risk turning horror into parody. The audience is given only a glimpse, just enough to register the scale of what has been manufactured. The reveal is not accompanied by a rousing score. Instead, John Williams's music sits low in the mix, a faint pulse beneath the sound of marching boots. The silence between footsteps is deliberate, engineered to let the mechanical rhythm speak for itself. The clones are presented not as heroes, but as inventory. The Republic's miracle army is revealed as a commodity, ordered in secret, assembled without oversight, delivered on demand. The Jedi, standing at the edge of the platform, are dwarfed by the scale of the operation. Their questions about the army's origins are brushed aside, the details lost in the machinery of war. This is the moment when the miracle of Anakin's birth is echoed and inverted. Where Shmi's story offered a child born of the Force, the Kaminoans offer a legion born of commerce and genetic engineering. The clones are not chosen. They are selected, multiplied, and packaged. The camera lingers on their faces, but there is nothing to read. The helmets turn as one, a single gesture performed by thousands. The effect is uncanny, almost hypnotic, as if the film itself is recoiling from what it has revealed. Just minutes later, the film shifts again. Anakin, now a young man, sits with Padme on a sun-drenched veranda. He speaks about sand, how it is coarse, rough, irritating, how it gets everywhere. The tone is jarringly intimate, the dialogue awkward and exposed. The edit places this confession in direct proximity to the clone army's unveiling, a tonal fracture that feels almost intentional. The machinery of war and the machinery of romance grind against each other, neither quite fitting the other's rhythm. The clones, faceless and silent, are set in motion without ever being asked what they want. Their existence is a logistical solution, a means to an end. The film does not dwell on their fate. Instead, it moves on, as if uneasy with what it has shown. The audience is left with a sense that something fundamental has been manufactured, not just in the galaxy, but in the story itself. The war to come is not a clash of heroes and villains. It is the inevitable result of a process that began with a single order and ends with 1,000 identical soldiers waiting for instructions. A corridor in the Jedi Temple, washed in pale light, holds a silence that is neither peaceful nor safe. Children in brown robes gather in a loose circle, the echo of their voices already fading. The door slides open. Anakin stands in the threshold, his silhouette framed by the blue glow of a lightsaber. The camera does not blink. It holds the moment, the diagonal line of the blade slicing across the composition, a storyboarded choice that turns the frame into a wound. The first cut is not quick. The music drops away, replaced by a low, sustained drone from the strings, almost a physical pressure in the air. There is no scream. The original take included one, Padmé's scream, later recorded in the medical bay, but it was removed in editing. What remains is a vacuum. Each act of violence is followed by emptiness, a silence that lingers longer than comfort allows. On Mustafar, the pattern repeats. Anakin's blade moves through separatist leaders without resistance. The choreography is precise, mechanical, as if brutality is being measured out in units. The camera lingers on faces, on hands reaching up, on the streak of a burn across metal and flesh. The storyboards plot these moments with clinical geometry, lines drawn at angles, bodies arranged in tableau, each composition more severe than the last. Padmé's death offers no relief. The medical droid's diagnosis that she has lost the will to live lands without explanation or comfort. In an earlier cut, her scream is raw, but in the final film, her silence is absolute. The low-string drone returns. The sequence is drained of catharsis. Suffering is not accidental. It is deliberate, crafted, and left unresolved. The film does not look away. It waits for the audience to absorb the cruelty, then offers only more silence. A low red light spills across the Chancellor's office. Palpatine sits close beside Anakin, voice barely above a whisper. The words come slowly, almost as if he's testing their weight. He had such a knowledge of the dark side that he could even influence the midi-chlorians to create life. The line lands without music, without emphasis, as if it is just another piece of trivia. But the camera lingers on Palpatine's face, eyes glinting in the crimson haze. And the silence that follows is not empty, it is loaded. This is not myth. The script's earlier drafts skirted the claim, but by 2003, the rewrite makes it explicit. Creation is possible, and someone in this room knows how. The final cut holds the moment just long enough for the suggestion to settle. A deleted take, preserved on the DVD, extends the pause, the camera pushing in until Palpatine's admission feels less like a story and more like a confession. The lighting design is deliberate. Roger Guyot's notes describe a subtle backlight, tinting Palpatine's features red, isolating him from the rest of the world. John Williams's score drops to a faint, resonant hum, the kind that sits just below the threshold of hearing, rising only when the phrase "create life" is spoken. Even the air seems to thicken. The 2012 novelization, written after the film, closes the circle. Palpatine is not just repeating legend. He is the architect. The apprentice who killed his master then used that knowledge to engineer the birth of a child with no father. The implication is not shouted. It is left to fester. Ian McDiarmid, in a behind-the-scenes interview, calls the line an admission of our own involvement. The camera, the script, the music, all conspire to make the moment plausible. The Sith did not just corrupt a hero, they may have built him from the start. The trilogy's pattern, uneasy from the first frame, finds its quiet climax here. The villain's hand reaches back through time, and the story's miracle is revealed as a manufactured event. There is no comfort in the silence that follows. The prequel's uncanny residue persists, remnants of choices that still unsettle even after decades of analysis. Today, these films remain among the most rewatched and reinterpreted in modern culture, as new generations inherit them. The sense of something fundamentally off lingers, quietly shaping how we experience myth. Sometimes what haunts us isn't what we notice first. Share what still unsettles you in the comments.